Hi, today we're going to address something that is very cool and very useful. So I love to do coasters, but these are all like one-sided deals. And on the back side, I'll engrave, the shop name or something. But what if you actually wanted to do double-sided stuff? And what if that stuff is not necessarily symmetrical like a circle or a square? What if it's asymmetrical? I'm going to show you how you do that in today's video. So here, using Inkscape, making a floppy disk. Now, this isn't necessarily a tutorial in how to make this. This is just the shape, and here's the backside of that shape. So we've got these shapes. We've got the green line cutouts. We've got our blue score lines, which are actually also tucked in back here. And we've got our black engrave areas. And here on the opposite side, we've got the back side with my logo and all of the other details that are just flipped. Now, if I were to take these two, and we can help, see what's going on here by increasing the size of the stroke, just for the kicks and the giggles so that you can see what I'm talking about. If we had these two placed right here and put right over each other, you'd see, one of these areas has this flat, slanted thing, and this little area isn't quite the same as that, so it doesn't quite look the same. But if we were to flip it like a mirror, then we have the exact same setup. We have the exact same lines appearing in the exact same ways. So essentially, the way that I achieved this was I did the front side, I duplicated it, put it over here, flipped it, and now I had this back side to work with. So that doesn't exactly work. This is where editing is important, because I'm still looking at this as this one turned back around. These two put right on top of each other are exactly the same. Anyways, don't you just love it when, you make an error on the mistake and you put it on YouTube for everyone to see? Anyway, you have your files, you have them all set up, and now you want to arrange them. It's not quite nesting, but it's just arranging and aligning them so they take up the least amount of space, but you are also creating a jig. So I have here selected 4 objects. Now clearly there's a lot more going on here, but I have these grouped so that I select one and it selects all of them. And the way you do that is if they're broken up into their individual pieces, my engrave stuff is floating over here, one of these lines over there. I can just select all of those, go into, which one is it? Edit, object. I'm looking for group. There it is, group. Control G. And I can just make a group out of that. And I'll select this top row, and I'll go over here to my alignment tools. I want to use last selected just because that's what I'm using. I want to make sure they're all centered horizontally and that they're all evenly distributed horizontally. So what that will do is it will create uniformity with how far apart they're spaced and they're aligned. But I want to do 2 versions of this. I want this top row here, and there's also this bottom row, because the way that I'm going to be setting up specifically this is I'm going to be engraving this top side and this bottom side. This is where engraving asymmetrical shapes can get a little tricky, and this is how you do it. You engrave the bottom side of one of these first, and then you engrave the top side of one of these next to it, so that you're doing a top side and a bottom side right next to each other. And I do the same with this one. I have 4 coasters here, disc 1 of 4 to 4 of 4. If you don't get that joke, I'm sorry. So I'm going to do this top row first, and then once I'm done, I'll take this bottom one, essentially I'll flip it and put it where this coaster is. And likewise, I'll flip this one and put it where that coaster is. But this will be in the actual engraving, when I'm actually using my wood and engraving and flipping pieces. But that's my plan, is I'm going to be flipping them onto the other side, and then I will take this bottom row and engrave on that. So now this coaster will have been flipped onto its back, and we'll have that front engraved on this back side. If it doesn't make sense right away, I will be filming how this is all done. But I'm going to have all these also arranged exactly the same way as this top row. In fact, if you want to make sure it's exactly the same, click on this bottom one, click on the top, align it all the way to the left, grab this one, align that one all the way to the right, and then do the same thing. Make sure they're all horizontally centered and evenly centered. Then this will look exactly like this jig on the top. And then it's just a matter of selecting that one and pasting it onto your job here in Lightburn. Now the setup here is a little technical, not terrible, but the way that I like to do my engraving is I fill groups together. Now, when you are uploading into Lightburn, there is a little bit of a technicality with the way that grouping works. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. I'll show you the example between these two. These are the same files, it's just the way that they're grouped is different. So if I were to go to preview of the one that I just copied and pasted, you see all this red space. All that red space is the path that the laser head is traveling. If you're looking at a file and it is full of this red space, you can do better. It'll still finish in 13 minutes, 25 seconds, but you can do better. So I'm going to put that one away and show you what I did for this one. This one is broken up into individual groups. I'll turn my output on for that. So you can see I can click and drag away these individually. Now, this one that I just copy pasted, it automatically made the entire thing into a group. But if I ungroup it once, not quite, ungroup it twice, now it'll respect the grouping that I already did in Inkscape. So I don't want to take it any farther than that, but I do want to keep it to these 4 selectable graphics. The reason that makes any kind of difference is if I select these and look at my preview, instead of 13 minutes and whatever, now it's 11 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's much more manageable because now it's going and doing one coaster at a time, all that black graphic, and it's much faster. This took, 2 minutes off of it. If that's not an issue to you, then don't worry about it. But this shows you how Lightburn will handle the file, how it will arrange all the things to cut it in that order. So much less red space. There's nothing I can do about this area here. It's better that all of this is done at the same time and that's done at the same time. That's okay. It's honestly okay. For things like circles and all the stuff inside of circles, you can't really get around that. So the way that you set this up is you want to grab your first file and send that to the laser. Alright, got the laser actually turned on so I can show you this part. So you select your top row, and we want to make sure we do engrave first, then score, then cut. If you don't actually have this setup where you need to have it done in a certain order, make sure you turn on optimize cut path, and then it will handle that. I also have turned on use cut selected graphics and use selection origin, so that I'm only sending over what I have selected. It's not going to get all of this or even this extra stuff that I have over here. It's only grabbing what I've selected. So I'm going to send that to my laser, and I want to call it disk 1. Now I've already sent it over, I've already got this all set up, but I want to hit OK, and then that will get sent over under that name. And then I'm going to select this bottom row. I'm going to turn off my cut line because I don't need to cut this out over again. Remember, I'm just lifting it out and flopping it. So I only need to do the engrave and the score line. I don't need to cut all over again. So I'm going to turn off the green output and then send that as disk 2. So my second pass at all of this, and hit OK, and all of that will be sent over to the laser. And now I'll show you how that's done. So when you're starting up your job, the way I have it is I have my laser dot set right where I want to start it. Now here in Lightburn, we have here start from current position. You have two other options here, but I'm doing start from current position and starting in this job origin spot right here, top right corner. I have selected graphics, use selection origin, and that is all that I am using here. So when I want to frame my job, it's pointed at that top right corner, and I just press frame. I've got my file selected right here. I'm going to hit frame. You can see that it frames out the job exactly where it's going to exist. It's avoiding the cuts that have already been made. It follows a nice straight line there, and that's exactly where I want it. So now that I've got everything all ready to go, I'm going to be engraving out a set of these disc coasters, and I will show you how to engrave a front side and back. And always make sure before you even start that you got your board and your ventilation out your window and you've pushed the exhaust. Okay, let's take a look at these. Looks like these have the wiggle. Sorry, so these have been completely cut all the way through. Now, in order to do a double-sided material, because I want to be putting this one, flipping it over to right here, taking this one and flipping over right there. And I'll do the same with those two. Now, whatever mounts you are using, I'm using these rare earth magnets to keep this material in place, because it's very important that this stays put. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some painter's tape and get those removed. And if you do have to move your laser head out of the way to get to one of your pieces, it is okay to move the actual laser head out of the way with your arrow keys. Just make sure you have your origin button set. So that way if you move it out of the way, you can hit escape and it will go right back to where it was. So I do want a little bit of wiggle room so I can get these pieces out. And you might need to use both hands with this, but just be very careful depending on the material that you use. Yeah, you might need to use two hands, or you might not need to use any hands. It really honestly depends on the wood that you use and the tape you're using. Okay, so I did have to move that out of the way a bit more, and this one did have a bit of a leftover bit right there, and that just happens with plywood types like this. If it really concerns you, you could do a cut pass alone. You don't have to re-engrave it, just do the cut pass. And that'll get any leftover bits that might be making it difficult to get up. So now what you do is, now that you've had this section cut out, you just flip it over and place it in the opposite side. So now you have a perfect snug fit where it fits in. Now I take one of these, flip it over, and fit it in there. Because you got these grooves that are very specific to this disc shape, and because they are asymmetrical, they will fit in on the other side. Right, and just make sure that is all nice and flat. Don't get splinters. Ow. Okay, let's go over to here, and remember we want that right back in that position. So we hit escape, and boom, goes right there. Now we did the disc 1 option. So we're going to go into File, and we want to select disc number 2. So we hit the down arrow, and now we have disc number 2. And we see the little image pop up there. Hit enter, and now it shows the same type of image, except it's got the different, disc 3 or 4 and disc 4 or 4, and there's no cut line. So we're not going to be cutting on this one. We're only going to be doing engraving and score marks. So those are the exact same settings we were working with before. Let's get it closed up and get it going. Remember to turn on your exhaust. All right, and start. The last finishing touches. It is done. Go ahead and turn off our exhaust. And look at our good results. This is probably one of my more favorite things to do with the engraver. So these should be able to pop out reasonably nice and easy. I guess that speaks to how well the kerf is. It has such a snug fit. People prefer this instead. Pop right out the bottom. And look at that. So we got our double-sided asymmetrical coasters. So just like that, you can create a set 4 of these that are double-sided. Now see, that last one took 9 minutes. The other one took 13. You could put out a set of these in 20 minutes or so. That is incredible and awesome. And just depending on the type of wood that you're using, you might have to change up the speed, depending on how thick it is, if there are any knots in the wood. Like that one, got there. Gonna have to burn that up a little bit so it blends in. You know what? That is the extent of it. Awesome. And there you have it. You have 4 coasters that are all engraved front and back that are asymmetrical. They are not the same size or necessarily shape or outline from the front and back like a round coaster would be. This is the same no matter which way you rotate or twist it. So doing shapes like these are possible. They may take a little bit of planning and a little bit of work, but you can definitely do these. So have fun with it. I would love to see what you all create with it as well. Tell me down in the comments what you got going on and what questions I can answer for you. But thank you for coming to this tutorial, and yeah, I need to find a place that doesn't have light hitting my glasses. I need to do this, but then I look weird, and it's just, I don't know. Hi, Baba. You playing on your toys? I'm recording the video. Yeah, this is the outro. Most of them have gone by now. Yeah. Anyways, so make sure that is nice and flat, that these are all pushed down and in their spots, and we're good. That's good.